Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Seminole Ridge High School, and this in our third public forum, public update for the Acreage and the issues that you were asked to the Department of Health to bring to your attention and bring to the forefront. So this evening we have a pretty packed agenda, but we actually want to hear from you as well and hopefully get as many of your questions answered as possible. So I don't want to go into long details, but I do want to introduce, or what we will start with, is we do have our state representatives up in Tallahassee who couldn't be with us because of the legislative session and or the committee meetings that are getting ready to start. And just so you know, we have Representative Joe Abruzzo, we have Representative Mark Pafford, and again, Representative Matt Bernard. And then up here on the panel for this evening, each of these people will speak briefly, and then we'll get to your questions. We have Dr. Shairi Turner, Deputy Secretary of Health from the Department of Health and Director of Minority Health for the state of Florida. We have Dr. Sharon Watkins, who is the Senior Environmental Epidemiologist. We have Mr. John O'Malley. He is the Director of Environmental Public Health for the Palm Beach County Health Department. We have Mrs. Mary Jean Yan from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, Division of Waste Management. And on the end of the table there, we have Mr. John Williamson. He's the administrator from the Bureau of Radiation, so we can hopefully cover pretty much every area. The one thing I will ask, due to the number of people and the interest of trying to get as many questions answered as possible, we're going to try and limit the question part to 3 minutes or even less. So if you could ask your question in under 3 minutes, that would be greatly appreciated, and we will try to send a reminder. Also, we are recording all of this, so if your question doesn't get answered, we're going to be reviewing those tapes and hopefully be able to get back to you with the answers to those questions, either to post them on the Health Department website, which is pbchd.com. We'll also try to post them on the Department of Environmental Protection's website, as well as the Florida Department of Health website. So as soon as we can, we will review and try to get everybody's questions answered as best we can as time goes on. So now at this time, though, I would like to introduce Representative Joe Abruzzo up in Tallahassee.
Can you all hear us?
Yes. That's great. I'll be fine.
Well, first off, thank you to everybody in the community for coming together for this very important meeting. Senator Arenberg will be joining us in a few moments, and us here in Tallahassee is really here to listen to what the other gentlemen and members of the state government have to say regarding what's going on in our community. I'm here to help. We're here to push for more testing and more resources from the government if need be, and that's what we see at this point. I'm joined by Representative Matt Bernard and Representative Mark Pafford. We're all very concerned, and we're just eager to hear what many of the speakers tonight have to say.
Representative Bernard, would you have anything to say at this time or wish to address the audience with?
Good evening. For those of you who doesn't know me, I'm Representative Matt Bernard, and I represent District 84, and a little bit of the acreage is part of my district. And along with Representative Abruzzo, Representative Mark Pafford, what we're here is to listen to the cause of the cancer cluster, and we want to make sure that we get as much testing that is needed, so that way we can address this situation as quickly as possible. And I want to thank everyone that came out tonight, and what we hope is to get some answers.
Thank you, Representative Bernard, and Representative Mark Pafford.
Thank you for the invitation. It's wonderful what technology can do. I sit here wondering, certainly all the advanced technology, why we can't learn more about the cancer cluster. in the Acreage. I happened to live there for a number of years. Some people may not know that, and obviously I know the area and have great concern for the folks that I know live there and have certainly suffered from cancer, and quite frankly are scared. I'm here again with my colleagues and Senator Arenberg in a few minutes. Not only to learn more, I really want to determine, what actually caused the cancer. If we can do that, we need to literally spend a tremendous amount of time and resource to do that. To leave an area without the cause of such a cluster, to me, is something we just can't do. So again, thank you for the invitation. I look forward to listening.
Thank you, Representative Paffer. Now, at this time, I would like to introduce Dr. Shairi Turner, who is the Deputy Secretary of Health.
Good evening. I am the Deputy Secretary for Health at the Department of Health in Tallahassee. I'm also an internist and pediatrician. I supervise among many divisions, one of which is the Division of Environmental Health, as well as the 67 county health departments, Palm Beach County Health Department being one. So I'm here on behalf of our Governor, Charlie Crist, and our State Surgeon General, Dr. Anna Viamonte-Ross. So I want to open by saying thank you. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your frustration. Thank you for your voice and the passion that you bring on behalf of your children and on behalf of your community. Thank you for having us here to engage in this dialogue, to answer your questions truthfully and honestly. I want to reassure you in person that the Department of Health and the state of Florida want to find an answer to what is causing brain cancer in your children. I want to say personally, I am a mother and I'm a pediatrician. And as I was coming down here, I can only imagine the fear and the frustration that you would have as parents in your community. Wondering, is it the water, is it the air, is it the soil? How do I protect my child? How do I protect my home? How do I protect my family? Who is helping me? So I can only say we are sorry. We are sorry for your losses. We are sorry for the loss of your children, for the loss of the property value, for your frustration, for your fear of the unknown. I can only empathize, but in doing so, I say we share your frustration. We know we are the agency that you have looked to for answers, and we want to provide those answers. So your next question is, why has the Department of Health changed direction? What you had heard was that we had stopped testing. The intent of the message was that we had reached the end of our agency's expertise. We realized we were in uncharted territories. There were increased cancer rates and no clear cause. But we are committed to finding the answers, I assure you. So what have we done subsequent to finding that the rates of cancer were higher for brain cancer in the children in your community? We looked to our sister agencies, so thank you to the Department of Environmental Protection for coming down today and working with us. We looked to our federal partners, the Centers for Disease Control. Next week will come, review our information, review our data, provide their insight. The National Institute of Health, the National Cancer Institute, the Surgeon General has reached out, we have reached out to them, and they have agreed to offer their assistance. They are offering their guidance to us. So with the Department of Environmental Protection, we will be testing, and you'll hear more of this today, this evening. We will be testing the soil and the water of the families with the children who've experienced cancer. The Department of Health is
Right.
Yeah, why only them?
Everybody else.
what I'm going to do is give an overview. We have our other subject matter experts to speak to those questions. At the end, if there's any questions that are unanswered based on the presentation, we will be here to answer those questions. The Department of Health is here. We're going to be doing gamma radiation testing. Then we can all regroup and discuss the information and the next steps. And we're here to support your county health department in this mission. So this is a partnership between both the central office, Department of Health, and your county health department. So I have to end with this. This is not a science project. This is not about the money or the staff or the time. There's no cost, there's no price that you can put on the life of a child or on your peace of mind, and we recognize that. We're not going anywhere. We're not abandoning you. We're looking for answers with you. This is uncharted territory for us as well. So the journey into the unknown we're looking to take together with you. It requires open and honest communication, and we're here to provide that until we reach a resolution. So tonight, all we ask is for your open minds, your open ears, as we talk about what's been done, the next steps, and answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Now, if I may introduce Dr. Sharon Watkins. She's our PhD, our resident senior environmental epidemiologist, been with us on this study since the very beginning. And she will talk a little bit about the population recalculation and some other topics.
Well, I want to reiterate my thanks to the county for having this meeting and to our legislators for being present, and mostly to all of you for taking the time to come tonight. And I hope that we're able to answer some of your questions and to better help you understand this process. I want to reiterate again how very aware we are of how anxious you are and how disruptive and how much uncertainty there has been in this situation. We know that you're fearful of what these results mean, and we're really, in our minds are always the pain and suffering of the families that have been affected. I want to just give you a brief update of what we've been doing. I want to take my time. I don't have very many slides tonight, but I want to make sure that your questions are answered. And we want this process to be as transparent as possible so that you understand what we did and what that means. I have talked to many of you personally, and I hope in that time I've been able to answer some of your questions. You've emailed me, you've called me, I've tried to address some of these. And if you haven't necessarily heard from me personally, sometimes I've forwarded your emails or your questions to some of our experts who are better able to answer them depending what they are. But again, I want to make sure that I take my time and that tonight you take the time to ask the questions and so that we get through this process together. All right. When I was here a few months ago, we had just finished the level 1, and one of the recommendations that came out of the level 1 study was that we were a little uncertain about our population numbers. And we felt that it would be better if we could get a more on-the-ground estimate of the number of people that lived in Acreage. And so that was part of what the level 2 was. And it involved trying to estimate the numbers of living in the acreage a number of different ways. So for this process, we looked at 3 different sources. And the first source is the Florida Legislator's Office of Economic and Demographic Research. And this office produces estimates on population at a county level. And so we took those numbers, and they're not at your acreage level, but they're a county level, and they show growth over time. And we took the growth that they estimated for the county, and we assumed that it was consistent even in the acreage. And we estimated your population in the acreage for each year, for each age group, for males and females. And based on that estimate, the growth from 2000 to 2007 was the 29,000, which the census had estimated in 2000, and the growth was to about 31,900 people. So there was some growth based on this data source. Our second data source was the Palm Beach County Planning and Zoning Board. And this is a little more on the ground, feet on the ground, local data. They use school demographic data. They use some other sources of who's moving in, the building, the not building, the empties, all that sort of stuff. And again, we like this because it's more locally based, and it estimated some growth, and then it estimated some down growth in recent years. And it also estimated a little bit of change in the age distribution of the population. But using this estimate, we came up with 38,851 people in the acreage currently. And that number was for each year we estimated. We estimated every age group, we estimated males and females. Okay. So then we get to our third source of data, which is Florida Power and Light. And that's based on the number of hookups or meters. And then we take that and look at the average population, the number of people in a house. And we had estimates from Florida Power and Light for a number of years, not just 1 year, but a number of years. And so when you take that estimate of the number of households or hookups and the average number of people in a house, we were able to also get another estimate of the number of people that are in your community. And that estimate came out to 39,800. And again, we used that number to estimate every year between 2000 and 2007, males and females, and every age group. So then we took those new numbers, those new estimates of the population, and we went back and recalculated the pediatric brain cancer rates, which was what our promise was in October when I was with you last. And based on that, I want to say that the increases in your area, it depended on which estimate we used, but the low estimate said there was about an increase of roughly 10% in your community, ranging to the high estimate, which said about 37% in the community. But when we took those estimates and used each of those to recalculate the pediatric brain cancer rate, for each method, the statistic, the number of cases we see in a community versus the number that we would expect still remained elevated. The increase in population here did reduce that statistic. So it wasn't as great as we expected, in the first estimate, but nevertheless, for each one of these methods, cancers were still statistically elevated, the pediatric brain cancers. So what that says is that we were correct in that when we recalculated these population numbers, it did lower that overall risk numbers that we saw. So just to give you an example, we saw 4 cases of pediatric brain cancer in the 2005 to 2007 period, and based on our initial report, we would only expect 1. And when we redid the calculations, we would expect a little more than 1. But nevertheless, this results in an elevated rate. And what that means when we say there's an elevated rate is that's how you get the term it's a cancer cluster, which I realize causes a lot of alarm bells to go off. But a cluster is simply an increase in a specific disease, in this case pediatric brain cancer, in a specific time period, and that's in these recent years, in a specific geographic area, and we looked in the acreage. And there's nothing, it's just a definition based on numbers. And if we had a couple less cases in 1 year, we may not have found a statistical significance. You know, and I understand that you're talking numbers, but again, these are children, and we do realize that. And we are very aware of that, and I'm aware of that as a mother when I stand up here and say that. But, so this is the basis of, we promised that we'd recalculate. We take a look at your population, make sure that that wasn't what was kind of driving that first report. We felt that the numbers still show an elevation based on our best estimates of the population. So then another thing that we promised in that first report was to interview families. And we have completed the interview of these families. The goal was to look at the demographic and general characteristics. We really are looking for general and commonalities among this group. It's a multi-part questionnaire. It was developed with our federal partners. I mean, we had conversations with the Centers for Disease Control. We had conversations with the Agency for Toxic Disease Substance Registry, ATSDR. And they provided us with some templates of questionnaires they've used in other studies. And we used those and then built upon them. And questions, it was a very long questionnaire, and questions related to residential history, medical history of the child and the family, their child's immunization history, hobbies that occurred in the home, pregnancy history of the mother, nutritional history, occupation of parents, lots and lots of exposure to pets, and lots of questions. So the Palm Beach County has finished this interview phase, and they are currently analyzing those results. So it's a little premature to say that the phase 2 is complete, but and when the results are done with this phase, the results will be shared with the community. Now the next slide is a little bit of a timeline, and I hope you can all see this. This is basically what we are analyzing. And so you can see that this represents the number of cases in your community from 1994 to 2008. In 2008, there are 4 cases on the board there. And then you see again that there are 4 cases in 2005. You see that there are cases in 2004, and then not any cases prior to that. We go back to 1999 and 2000. I'm not sure if you all can see it, but the types of cancers are different. There are specific different types of pediatric brain cancers, and a few of them are represented more than once, but it's not a clustering of a specific type of pediatric brain cancer. And you know, when we say that we observe a cluster in recent years, you can see that if I bracket the years 2004 to 2007 or 2005 to 2007, that would encompass more cases than you're seeing perhaps if you went from 2001 to 2003. There would not be a cluster had we only looked at that time period. And so part of the process is that we're dealing with small numbers, and that makes analysis more difficult and interpretation more difficult. Now, we chose to interview, a lot of the analysis was done in the more recent time period, but the Palm Beach County Health Department chose to analyze and interview all the cases that they could that appeared from 1994 to 2008. And I think that was a great decision, and it meant that they had more information on as many pediatric cancer cases, brain cancer cases as they possibly could. So I understand that you hear 6 cases, 12 cases, 13 cases, 4 cases, and it might be a little confusing. And so the Palm Beach County Health Department thought that putting up this particular slide of the timeline of diagnosis might be helpful in understanding where the 12 or 13 cases comes versus where the 4 cases or 6 cases. It's just a visual representation for you of what was analyzed. I think Dr. Turner spoke about next steps. and I want to emphasize that we've already started those steps. The CDC has been reached out to. They've looked at our analysis all along. We've been in partnership with them all along. I've been present at some very frank, very candid conversations that occurred last week with the CDC. And in addition, the other partners have been reached out by our Surgeon General. So again, what's coming in the next few months is discussions with our federal partners, what testing's recommended at that point, and results from the interview. And there's a lot of information being provided by my other partners, so I'm going to cut my talk here.
Thank you, Dr. Watkins. I don't know if you noticed up on the screen that it looks like Senator Dave Arenberg has joined our panel up in Tallahassee. Senator. Thank you. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. I represent the communities of Deer Run, White Fences, and Fox Trail, but I've been in office now for 8 years, so I'm a senior member of the delegation. And I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I know it's a rainy night in Palm Beach County, and my heart goes out to the people out there. There's 843 people in the auditorium tonight, but there are also, I hear there are a couple hundred people outside who could not get in, and it's raining, and I wonder if someone can tell them that this is also, I believe, being simulcast on Channel 20. I just hate to have everyone miss out on this or be stuck in the rain outside. So maybe someone can go tell them there's a way for them to get the information that we're getting inside here tonight. I want to thank Representative Joseph Abruzzo. He has worked closely with me to get the initial letter, to get the testing started at the state level. And I'm glad that we've reached a point where the fears of the people in the acreage in our communities are now, they're realized or they're recognized, actually, because there has been a lot of concern of elevated cancer, and yet for months we have heard, no, it's in our mind. Well, it's not in our mind. This is reality. And I'm really glad that we're able to get to the stage where we have testing, and thank you, Dr. Watkins, for what you said about testing, because I share the concerns of the people there that this is more than just cell phones and diet soda. This is more testing is needed. I said too much because I want to be here to listen rather than speak. But just, I want you to know that even though we're not here tonight in person, we're going to be paying attention to everything that you all say. And thank you, Representative Matt Bernard, Representative Mark Patrick. The other person you can't see here is Todd Montlarin. He's the Legislative Affairs Director for Palm Beach County. He's your paid representative from the county up here in Tallahassee. And he's not on camera, but he's taking notes as well. So with that, thank you for being here. I hope that we can get a resolution to this for the safety of the people in the Acreage.
Thank you, Senator Arenberg. And now I'd like at this time to introduce Mr. John O'Malley. He's the Director of our Environmental Public Health Section here at the Palm Beach County Health Department. And he's going to talk to you a little bit about the testing that we did do in the interview families with regard to the radon.
Good evening. When we moved to the second phase, Palm Beach County's jurisdiction was to begin to interview the affected families. That process was very extensive. Along with that, we, as public health officials, had requested that we would ask and offer for radon testing in those homes. Now, the first question that we ask is, why do we do that? Radon is a radioactive gas that is linked to lung cancer. The reason that we were offering this test, this analysis, was one, it's good public health practice. It's something that we recommend every home be done. We're approaching this with leaving no stone unturned. And I would rather stand here before you and defend what we did test than what we failed to test.
How many houses did you test? How many houses did you test? 5 houses? What did you test them on?
Please let me try to finish the presentation, and we will get to your questions, I promise. Okay. We did test the affected homes. It was voluntary. We did 11 homes. I'm here tonight. I'm here tonight to explain the reasoning, what radon is, explain the results that we got, and also explain to you that this is something that's very simple that can be done in anyone's home for a very, very minimal price, and it assures you that there's no radon gas in your home.
Who showed us the property?
What do we pay our taxes for? These jokes.
Who collected the taxes from us?
Okay, radon is generated from uranium 226 and 228 as it decays. It is a gas that's formed in rock, soil, and in water. The concern with the radon is that there is vapor pressure, soil vapor pressure beneath your concrete slab. The overburden of your home compresses the soil and creates a pressure under the home. Any cracks in the concrete pad allows for radon to enter the home. Okay? So with this simple test that we've done, we were able to determine whether there is a radon, significant presence of radon in the homes. Okay, this is the results of the testing. There are 2 canisters placed 4 inches apart in usually the bedrooms. They were placed by a certified radon specialist and a certified radon technician. They're placed in a home, and the house has to be prepared ahead of time. That means in closed conditions. So at least 12 hours before we place the canisters, the home is closed except for entry and exit. The windows are kept shut and the fans are turned off. The recommended time is at least 48 hours for the test. We did it for approximately 4 days in the homes. Okay, there were 11 homes tested, and what you see is 22 canister devices and their readings. Okay, this is my analysis of the data. These 2 canisters represent 1 home. So the top value is a 0.8, and the second device was a 2. The average was 1.4 for that home. The general average for all homes tested was 1.695. EPA sets the action level, standard action level, at 4 picocuries per liter. Okay, so this is the analysis that we have so far. All of these homes are well below the action level set by EPA. So I did want to report to you as soon as possible The data that we collect is public information. We will post the data, and we will give you the interpretation of what we have as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Just as a reminder, if you have questions, we are going to address those as soon as our speakers finish with the information that we have to present this evening. So as soon as we can, we will get to the questions. So if you could just help us and let us complete what we can present to you, and then hopefully answer any additional questions you may have. At this time, I would like to introduce Mr. John Williamson. John is our administrator from the Bureau of Radiation. Oh, I'm sorry. Time out. Jumping the gun on you a little bit. Mary Jean Yan. Mary Jean is the director from the Division of Waste Management from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. She has just a very brief announcement for conversation with you, and then we will obviously get into John's presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. Boy, that was really, I almost got away with not having to talk. Good. As Tim said, I'm Mary Jean Yana from DEP in Tallahassee from the Division of Waste Management. The way most of you know of us is the site investigation section that was down in the Acreage this past summer in August, doing some sampling and some testing then. And the idea behind that was that we were trying to make sure as everything got started with Department of Health that we could come in and do some preliminary assessment just to make sure, to investigate the possibility that there were any kind of hazards that might be harming or threatening the drinking water in the community. We wanted to put that fear to rest as the Department of Health got going on their investigations. I didn't think that was going to work. Tim had a slide for me up here of kind of how we went about this. The idea was never to try to do each and every home that was out there. We tried to design kind of a broad approach of a grid sampling, if you will. 36 square mile area, divided it into 6 zones. We sent teams of samplers into each zone to test roughly 5 to 10 sites within those zones to get us 49 wells at private residences. And the idea being that that would give us a snapshot of the area. We analyzed for over 200 parameters just to make sure that we're akin to what one might find for industrial or agricultural uses either now or in the past. And when all was said and done, we had good results. We came back, we were able, October 1, to go final with our report, submit it to the Department of Health, and to say that the results of our report that showed there was no indication of these hazards. So that was the past. What I'm here tonight is to let you know, as the Department of Health also goes forward, that we're there, right there with them, to help support them. And we're going to do another level of testing that will focus initially on the homes and the people that have been this focused study with the Department of Health. So that means those 12 cases of cancers that they've identified. As Dr. Turner and Dr. Watkins have both said, each of our agencies is reaching out to federal partners on this. I've been in close contact with the Environmental Protection Agency. They have pledged their willingness to work with us, to be involved to whatever extent we can find for them to help us. And our starting point, and I'm not saying it's our ending point, but our starting point will be to sit down with both Department of Health and also with the federal partners. In the case of DOH, it'll be the Center for Disease Control, whoever they want at the table. And we'll have EPA plugged in and to figure out exactly how to go about this. When we sampled in August, all we did was groundwater, okay? When we come for this next level, we will get more detailed. We will actually do soil sampling as well as groundwater. And in addition to testing water as it goes into the house, we'd like to be able to work it out so that we're testing the water that's coming out of that treatment system, which is what people are actually drinking. So it's a whole nother level of detail. It's starting on a smaller scale, but it's just a starting point. That's the main message that I've got for you tonight. And my presentation is very brief on that account, but I'm certainly here all evening to answer the questions as they arise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Jean. Sorry, I was missing you. Now, I would like to introduce Mr. John Williamson. He's our administrator from the Bureau of Radiation. And on top of his presentation, he's got a couple other things, so we do have a table to set up in conjunction with this. It'll take just a second, I promise. John.
Good evening. I work out of the Orlando office of the Bureau of Radiation Control. I'm the administrator of the Environmental Radiation Section. I've been working in that location since 1992. And I've got a little demonstration I'll do after the slideshow, but as a show of hands, how many people here think that you live in an environment free of radiation?
Apparently not.
Radiation is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Okay, the question is how much of it. And because the Bureau of Radiation Control is really newcomers into this project, I'd like to go over just a few little brief things on radiation and what we're looking for. What we're looking for and what we'd like to work with you to try and sample in the future. The electromagnetic spectrum. Radiation is really just a part of all the other things you see. Light, radio waves. It just happens that radiation, ionizing radiation, alphas, betas, and gammas, sits at the very high energy end of it. And that high energy is what causes issues. Because it ionizes, it knocks the electron off of atoms. And when the electron gets knocked off of atoms, it can do a couple of things, and none of them are particularly good. It can cause free radical formation. Free radicals are known to cause cancer. It can have direct or indirect effects. What's the effect? No matter whether you're looking at direct or indirect, it's DNA damage. Talk about DNA damage, you're starting to talk about, long-term risk of cancer. We've talked an awful lot about the various types of radiation. Most people, they hear it, but they don't really get a chance to have it demonstrated what it really is. Alpha radiation. And alpha radiation is a particle, okay? It's a big, heavy particle. The important thing to get out of it is that it can be easily stopped. It can be stopped by a piece of paper. And I'm going to do a demonstration with alpha radiation that will show you that. And, any of you who want me to do this demonstration elsewhere, all you have to do is give me a call. We travel throughout the state, we train your firefighters, we train policemen, and how to handle radiation incidents all the time. Beta particle. It's similar to an electron. It's not as massive as an alpha particle. It can be stopped by a sheet of plexiglass or a thin piece of metal. For the most part, both alphas and betas are trapped outside your body. The outer layers of skin can even slow down and stop betas. So why are we worried about alphas and betas? If you ingest them or if you inhale them. That's where you have the issues there. Gamma radiation. X-rays, gamma radiation. X-rays and gamma radiation are really the same thing. It's just X-rays come from outside the nucleus, gamma rays come from inside the nucleus. It's like a very high energy radio wave, okay? That high energy wave gets into your body and it does free radical formation, knocks the electron off a cell, causes free radicals, long-term effects can cause cancer. Gamma rays can be shielded by lead, concrete, water. You can't shield them with paper, you can't shield them with plexiglass. A simple form of a radioactive atom, X-rays, as I indicated, come off of the outer shell. Alpha particles, beta particles, and gamma rays come out of the nucleus. I mentioned what stops them. Alpha rays can be stopped by a sheet of paper, beta by aluminum or thick layers of plexiglass. Gamma rays takes concrete, steel, lead, water. What does all this really mean in the end? Why does the EPA have levels for your drinking water? Why do they recommend levels for the total exposure to gamma radiation? It's all based on risk. The long-term risk of developing additional cancers in the population. They start by looking at how much of the radiation you're going to intake. They go through some very complex biokinetic models. They figure out how much of that activity actually interacts within the body. They use dose models to actually determine how much radiation dose your body is getting. Then they look at risk models, which are based on health effects studies, predominantly uranium miners and the atomic bomb survivors. And they come up with a risk coefficient, i.e. what is the risk from ingesting or inhaling this much radiation over time. We start talking about the levels we look at in water. And the basic values that we came back 1976, the original NCLs for radiation in water. And most of it is going to be geared towards alpha radiation because alpha radiation is a massive particle. When it gets inside you, it causes damage. When it's outside you, it can be stopped by a layer of skin or a piece of paper. You have to ingest it. But when it gets inside, it can cause some real issues. And it comes down to basically 5 picocuries per liter of radium-226 and 228 combined. 5 picocuries is simply a measurement of how much radiation is in that water. When you send your water off to be tested, it'll come back and they will tell you you have 5 picocuries or 2 picocuries per liter. You don't actually have to know what it is, you have to know the values. If it's greater than 5, you need to make sure that you do something to your water treatment system. If it's less than 5, well, you don't, but you test for the most likely things. When you have your water tested for radiation, there's specific parameters that the EPA recommends that you have tested for. The main thing that's going to cause an issue with radiation in drinking water is alpha radiation. They test for alpha, and then if the alpha is above 15, then they go back and they start looking at radium-226 and 228. Questions later, please. Mention alpha greater than 15, same type of issues. Treatment would be required for the water. Recommended actually for private wells. Betas, based on a dose rate, 4 milligram per year. Betas in drinking water, extremely rare. They almost have to come from a man-made source, nuclear power plants. Yeah, but the St. Lucie power plant is well tested and well shorted here. That's not a nuclear power plant. Yeah, but that's not radiation. That's something else. That's once again, not radiation. Where do we really get these kind of values? Okay, we can go out and we can test. I'm going to give you just a couple of little. These are values out of the latest report from the NCRP, which is a group that looks at radiation protection in the United States. They wrote a report last year called Radiation Exposure to the United States, okay? And this is really a very interesting thing because we live in Florida. And I want you to notice that Florida, especially along the Gulf Coast areas, has the lowest average gamma exposure of anywhere in the United States. I'm not saying that your area doesn't have issues, but in general, when they look at measurements, because we live at very low altitude, we have very low levels of cosmic radiation. Estimated radon levels in indoor homes. Florida, once again, tends to have very, very low estimated levels of radon in your indoor home. This value corresponds to 1 picocurie per liter. This is 2 picocuries per liter. This is 3. This is 4, which is the action level is 4 picocuries per liter and above. And you see that only some small areas of Florida up along the Big Bend area. That's right. That has to do with the type of land around there, which has phosphate. Gamma ray absorbed dose. This is actually measuring the background radiation. You walk outside with an instrument like this. This is the type of readings that you're going to see. And you notice Florida, once again, tends to have very low average readings for gamma radiation. The highest areas are along the Rocky Mountain Ridge because they have a lot of hard rocks that have uranium content in the ores. I mentioned the NCRP report 160. It's sort of interesting in that since 1980, which is the last time they did this report, there's a almost doubling of the average radiation dose that people in the United States get. And almost 100% of that doubling is due to medical. Medical now makes up almost 50% of the radiation dose that Americans get on average. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell us what the median dose is. It's the average. When you use the average, you get all the people who have to have cancer treatments, and they kind of skew what the average may be for a median person who doesn't have to have all those. What is kind of interesting is that when we look at the values that we can control, the medical, there's still about 50% of it that's in other background, which is down here, it mentions the other background, internal, space and terrestrial. Depending on where we live, how often we fly, for every hour that you fly, you're getting about 0.5 to 1 milligram of dose. If you sleep next to somebody in the same bed, because we all have internal potassium 40 in us, you're actually getting twice the exposure you normally would because you're getting your own plus the person next to you. There's a lot of interesting things about radiation.